everyone, Infinitecaz here, and welcome back to another video. If you talk to Splatoon players and ask them what their least favourite game mode is, Clam Blitz will be sure to come up again and again. The mode certainly has a shaky reputation, but why is that exactly? Today, I want to try and break down why people dislike Clam Blitz, and pose a few suggestions to try and iron out the most commonly seen complaints. With that being said, let's get right into it. For those unaware, Clam Blitz is the only new ranked mode in Splatoon 2, and when it was introduced in late 2017, there was a lot of buzz surrounding it. However, it quickly gained a reputation of being overly frustrating and for some people, too complex. This makes sense when you look at the mode from a new player's perspective. Splat zones, tower control, and Rainmaker are all very simple to understand. Paint and hold the zone, ride the tower to the end, and pick up and carry the subject to a pedestal respectively. Contrast this to Clam Blitz, and bear with me here, as it's a pretty lengthy explanation. It's easy to see how it can be daunting to play initially. When the game starts, there are clams scattered around the map, and swimming into them allows you to carry them behind you. Collecting 10 clams forms a power clam, which can break the barrier to your opponent's basket, which is how you score. The basket is usually situated slightly into your respective base, so a well-coordinated push can easily reach it. A power clam scores 20 points, then any single additional clams add on 3. Clams also add to the basket's timer, which gives a larger window to score clams with. Once the timer runs out, the basket is back up, and you have a penalty equal to half the points you just scored. So to gain more points, you must surpass the penalty for your next push. Groups of clams will spawn on the map throughout the game, as well as clams dropping when a player is splattered. At the 5-minute mark, the game ends with whoever has the most points being victorious. Only if the basket is open or neither team has scored a single power clam will the game go into overtime. And that's the rules of Clam Blitz. Obviously, I simplified the other 3 modes, but you get the gist. Clams is more complex. So why is this an issue? When playing in solo, you're in a room with 7 strangers, who may have any level of experience with the mode. In C rank, it's not uncommon to find people unable to score, as the game doesn't do a good job explaining the mode to you. Even in X rank, you often see people make rookie level mistakes, which is frustrating to put it mildly. Now to quickly add, I don't dislike clams, but I often find myself disliking solo queue when I lose again and again. In a more competitive environment, I enjoy the game mode, and when both teams are well coordinated, Clam Blitz really shines. Because it's so team focused, it doesn't work well in a game format where the only communication is booyah, ouch, and this way. If you need to coordinate an effective push, it usually involves building a special or 2, collecting enough clams to make it worthwhile, getting picks, then pushing into the basket and scoring, keeping the enemy team at bay to safely throw in all your clams. Such coordination is near impossible in solo, and still tricky when communicating through voice chat. Often, the types of weapons on your team make a huge difference in terms of being able to easily apply pressure. Most slayers and midlines do well here, but some anchors struggle to keep up with the fast pace of the pushes the game requires. As a charger main, I usually use different weapons such as the Swiffer and Explosure in clams, just because heavier chargers struggle to perform as well. While the game makes some sort of attempt to match teams fairly, this is far from the case, and having a double backline or the lack of any useful specials seriously hinders your chances of winning. Your teammates are usually going to be wildly different skill levels as well, which throws the team off balance. This is nowhere near as noticeable on the other 3 ranked modes in my opinion, as it's a lot easier to push or assist pushing the objective alone. So if the lobby you're in is too low a level for you, carrying the team is easier. Trying to push in alone in Clam Blitz is near impossible, although granted, you should have your team as backup once you score or get multiple picks, but by then it may be too late. It's also a lot harder to get a quick KO in clams. Some people may like this, but the fact that the clams spawn randomly on the map can cause a lot of variation in the success of pushes, thanks to RNG alone. Take Inkblot Art Academy. A group of 4 clams spawn almost directly under the basket. So if you make a push and clams so happen to spawn there, you get a free 12 points. It's often a race to gather up clams to keep the basket open. And even if the enemy team are pushed back into spawn, the game may still drag out if the basket goes back up. Once this happens, there is also a time window where you can't score again. This is how Clam Blitz favours bigger pushes, which is great and all when your team can work together, but not at all fun when you're stuck with 3 people who are set in stone on doing their own thing. As I briefly touched on, there is a clear hierarchy in terms of the weapons used in this mode. While in general I applaud Splatoon for making every weapon usable in the right hands, there are a select few strategies that in my opinion makes clams a worse game mode overall. One of my personal gripes is using the ink brush and rushing in to try and score a quick power clam. If that's all you need to do to take the lead and win the game, I have no issue. But more often than not, having a teammate run in and sacrifice themselves and often a crucial power clam is disastrous. While this strategy is not the fault of clams itself, it's something I see often in solo and takes away from the enjoyment of the game. Same when it comes to super jumping in to score. It's something I, as well as everyone else does, but I just feel it's very cheap. It's tough in solo to push up and collect clams while keeping a close eye on your basket, and a solo brush sneaking past, followed by a super jump, should not cost you as much as it does. Bubbles are also an extremely commonly used special, and while I enjoy them, they are often pretty janky, and in solo your teammates usually mess with them, like popping them instantly when you want them for defense or cover. I really don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of these tactics, but I don't think they work in solo queue, as communication is key to pull them off. How do you communicate that you intend to rush in and provide a jump point? You really can't, at least not to any reasonable degree. The playstyle to successfully pull off pushes isn't easily replicated in solo, even compared to the other 3 ranked modes. I don't want to keep on rambling, cause I'll end up repeating myself to nauseam, but on a game mode heavily reliant on solid team play, playing in solo is far from ideal, especially if you want to avoid frustration. The way points are dished out can also be an irritant. Solo is frustrating already, and more often than not, a loss in clams isn't directly your fault. If your team refuses to cooperate, you all lose the same amount of points. I don't see how that's fair, especially if you have clearly contributed more to the game's outcome than someone else. This isn't a clams only issue, but coupled with the frustrations from the game mode itself, this can make a clam solo rotation particularly unpleasant to play on. So what could be changed? I think an easy fix would be better tutorials to explain the 4 ranked modes. Before going into ranked matches for the first time, similar to the Salmon Run tutorial, something simple yet informative can help new players understand the ins and outs of each game mode, to avoid any embarrassing slip-ups. To make the tutorial, I would simply run through the objective, how to score points and defend, as well as knocking out and a few mode-specific mechanics. Once completed, you can always revisit them if there's something you missed to make sure this information is always at your disposal. I also think the basket placement on certain maps could be altered, such as Gobi Arena, where the angle to throw clams is very awkward and has resulted in many rage-worthy moments. I also would like tweaks to be made where clams spawn. I mentioned the cluster on Inkblot Art Academy as an example, but most maps have instances similar to this that I would like to see changed. Next up, I would like to see more options for communication in solo, and I know voice chat isn't going to happen, but maybe more detailed commands could go a long way. You could pick 4 customizable lines, examples being pass the clam, super jump to me, and build your specials. I don't want to touch most aspects of the game mode itself, but I could maybe suggest an increase in the time you are unable to throw a power clam after super jumping, meaning it's harder to do the simple sneak or brute force under the basket with a special than jump with a power clam. I don't know how drastically this would affect the game mode as a whole, mind you, and I wanted to stay as consistent as possible in more competitive matches, but I'm open to changes for sure, providing the core aspect of the mode stays identical. That's all for now, and thank you so much for watching until the end. What's your experience with Clam Blitz, and is there anything you would do to change the mode? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe as it really helps me out, and I will see you all next time. Bye!